Hey, Kansas GunCom. Glad that you could join us tonight on our live chat, live fire right here. Live fire, and that's what we call it, as our roundtable discussion is going to be started tonight. We're going to be discussing concealed carry versus competition, or competition versus concealed carry, however you want to look at it, and whether they help or hurt one another, and all kinds of different issues that surround those two things. And we got an awesome panel tonight. Really, really excited. So excited about the folks that we have with us. And I want to introduce, or have them introduce themselves to you as we go along here. And glad to see several of you already in the chat room tonight. I know that we gave some shout outs here earlier. I don't have any shout outs right now to give out, but let's just go ahead and introduce ourselves. On my screen, what I'm seeing is, first of all, Clint from Williams Gunworks, and then we'll go down to Mike and John and Mark and Derek, and then finally our lady of the night is Corinne Mosher. So introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about your business, if it is so, or training, so on and so forth, so everybody can get to know you. Okay, and then
we'll starting with me.
Yeah.
Okay. William Turner. I'm the owner of Williams Gunworks in Wichita, Kansas. We do basically custom guns, custom holsters, stuff like that. Certified pistol instructor, rifle instructor. Yeah, that's about basically it. I've steered more towards the carry defensive side than I have competition. So.
Very good. Mike?
Okay. My name is Mike Yoder. I'm the owner of Trigger Guard Shooting Range down in Wellington. I just recently retired from the sheriff's office. I have actually right now 40 years of law enforcement experience, 37 of that being the range master and firearms instructor for the sheriff's department and Wellington Police Department. I'm currently the chairman of the Kansas Peace Officers Association Firearms Committee. While I was with the sheriff's office, I also served 20 years as the Southern Kansas SWAT commander, where I not only commanded the team but also taught tactics and firearm skills to the operators. So.
All right, and that's a lengthy bio in a very quick time.
Okay.
Thank you for your service so much over the years, and also, I mean, unlock you there, and also Mike's wife is actually a detective too.
Yeah, she's actually works at the sheriff's office also, and she's been there almost 20 years now.
So they are a law enforcement family.
And not only that, but my dad, my uncles, my son my son actually runs the jail at the sheriff's office now. So yeah, we keep it close.
There you go. Awesome. All right, well, John, introduce yourself, man.
I'm John with Crusader Arms Channel, YouTube content creator, gun enthusiast, and just I don't know, I guess a regular Joe. So that's about it.
You're a regular John.
A regular John.
A regular John.
He is not a professional.
I'm not a professional. Let the record show I am not a professional.
We're glad you're with us, though, man. We really are.
Oh, I appreciate it.
You're always a regular on our stuff, so we love you, man. So, Mark from FitnFire, talk to us about yourself, brother.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, Lyle. Yeah, so Mark from FitnFire. My channel is all about guns, gear, and the fitness to run both. I am an Army vet of 11 years, did some time on tanks, and then transitioned to the logistics field and did logistic movements and control for Marines in Afghanistan in 2010, 2011 with the 101st Airborne Division. So pretty proud about that. I am getting further and further into the EDC and training aspects of EDC. Just got back from tactical response this past weekend and training with James Yeager down there and his team. I was really excited to do that. I started competition shooting just a few years ago, ironically at Trigger Guard. Shot my first IDPA match down there. So it's nice to see that we kind of tie that into a nice finite circle for this chat. So that's basically who I am, and just much like John, I'm an average John myself. So only my name's Mark.
We're glad to have you, man, and it's good to know. You know, literally, John and I and Mark live not very far from one another. We're not going to disclose where everybody lives at, but it's just always, and we've never had coffee together.
Yeah,
That's
we
crazy.
need to do that.
Yep,
Still need to
we'll
do
get that fixed.
Or drinks or something, you know. But Derek, tell us about yourself, brother. You're one of my co-admins, man.
All right, sounds good, man. So my name is Derek. I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. I did some firearms instruction while I was there, some other instruction, basically urban patrolling, things like that. But I'm just a regular dude now, out and about, helping Lyle admin this page, and just trying to stay involved in not just training and keeping my skills sharp, but also getting involved in the, I guess, the legislative side of things, and trying to stay involved in up to date with what's going on there.
It's always good to have Derek on board. We've had some fun times, man. And then last but not least, she is the lady of the night, Corinne Mosher. We are so lucky to have you with us, Corinne, and I appreciate our friendship that we've had over the years. And you and Mike have been good people for me as a person, even. So, tell us about your big resume.
Well, it's not that big. My name is Corinne Mosher, and I'm the Director of Education at FitnFire Shooting Sports in Olathe, Kansas. I'm also a professional 3-gun shooter, and recently in the last 6-8 months, I've started traveling outside the United States to give courses with Instructor Zero and Team Zero. So instructor, competitor, mom. My husband is a police officer at Overland Park. Been on for about 13 years. We've been married for about 13 years. So that's it. That's me.
Thank you so much for, all of y'all. I'm honored and humbled that you would join us always on our live chats. And live fire is from now on. I hope to have it known as live fire, our roundtables, and it's going to be morphing over the time too. If you're a viewer, you're going to see some changes, and hopefully we go to a podcast system, and you'll be able to, in the future, not just be stuck to YouTube. We'll be available on iTunes and elsewhere. Hopefully, that's the plan. So we're going to grow. We're going to make mistakes, undoubtedly, because I'm involved. But hopefully we'll have some great discussions coming up and just some good times. Last time we talked about long-range shooting and precision rifle shooting. Had a great time together with those guys, man. It was awesome. Learned a lot. And tonight I'm so excited about this very topic, and I've got a whole list of stuff and some of y'all already have some questions that we got given, but I wanted to start out and ask Mike, a little bit about, and I know Corinne does too, but Mike, could you describe IDPA, USPCA, some of these, and GSSF, just in a nutshell, what some of the rules are and the idea, well, let's say the ideas of those competitions. And Corinne, if you want to add into that too and give us an idea of what 3-gun is as well as a competition.
Well, I'm more of a GSSF person. I know a little bit about IDPA. I've shot a couple matches, USPSA, mainly because the Wichita Practical Pistol Club holds their outdoor matches at my range. But as far as the rules and things like that, you ask me about GSSF and I can tell you. Corinne would probably know much more about IDPA, USPSA. But the idea behind the IDPA stands for International Defensive Pistol Association. And the way I understand it, it was developed or designed for the concealed carry shooter to put them in practical, real-world type situations as a means for them to practice their skill. And the weapons are your basic carry type pistols, revolvers, things like that. They don't allow any of the race guns or race holsters. It all has to be what you would typically carry either on duty or in a concealed carry type of a fashion. So, as far as they have a lot of rules that I'll just leave it at that. They have a lot of rules.
Now, what about GSSF, man? What are the rules there?
GSSF that's more of a it's the Glock Sport Shooting Foundation, and that's what it is. It's just a sport. It's just I don't believe it was designed to be any type of a practical type shooting situation. GSSF gears their events more towards the beginning shooter. They're family oriented. They really encourage families and youth and folks to come out and get started. It's a good competition, as I believe the Steel Challenge is as well. GSSF is a great way or a great place to come out and we hold a match, the only one in Kansas actually, at Trigger Guard, and this year it's going to be July 14th and 15th. Last year at our match we had 450 entries, and we're hoping to get to 500 this year. So it's really a great beginning level, entry level shooting competition for anybody who wants to get involved in it. And I don't look at it as a drawback, but some folks do, that in order to shoot the GSSF match, you have to shoot a Glock pistol, which, I can understand that. So anyway.
Well, that helps. Corinne, can you tell us a little bit about 3-gun and the competitions that you're a part of and have been a part of?
Yeah, so I haven't shot a GSSF match quite yet. Been meaning to, but the fact of the matter is there's so many different styles of shooting and styles of competition. You can try to do them all, but there are some differences, some subtle, some large differences between the different styles of shooting, even within 3-gun. If you go to a 3-gun match, you could be shooting USPSA multi-gun, or you could be shooting 3-Gun Nation, or you could be shooting UML, or you could be shooting some outlaw match that, who knows what the rules are going to be until you show up. But I did start with IDPA because I got into competition as a means to drive my skill development, to become a better instructor, to do something with what I could do, basically. So I started with IDPA. And, as Mike was saying, that is based in concealed carry principles. So you have to have your gun concealed. You have to have the placement in a certain way. You're required to do, what is it, Mike? Is it mag reloads behind cover, or you can't drop partially loaded magazines on the ground?
Yeah, you can't, because I got penalized for that in one of the matches. You cannot drop, unless they change this, you cannot drop, you can't drop a magazine on the ground unless you go to slide lock.
There you go. So an empty gun or emergency gun reload would be okay. So all these different things. And so I did fairly well with that, but then immediately moved on to 3-gun. And the rules, as far as scoring, I found that I preferred IDPA style of scoring, which is very much based in accuracy. You get counted down if you hit outside of the optimal scoring section, which would be the center or the head. And I like that because that was always, to me, to me, it's not an air gun, it's a gun. So every time I press the trigger, it's the same tool that I use for self-defense. I don't want to detrain myself. I don't want to start accepting or even looking for, hey, speed is better than accuracy. In my mind, it's not. So that's the cool thing about competition, is that you can learn this for yourself. You can push your speed. You can find out, hey, what works for you? How far can you take it? And then dial it back or fix the things that you need to get the right balance of speed and accuracy. Not only that, but because, you look at the targets, you score it, but you also look at how you work with your guns and how you work with your gear. And, in 3-gun, we have rifle, pistol, and shotgun and all the ammo, and sometimes different types of ammo for the same gun, different loads for the same gun in the same stage, different placement of our gear around the belt, or are we going to carry it somewhere else, different target engagements at different distances. I love 3-gun because to me, it's everything I would do with any of those guns all in one match. My pistol, close range, mid range, fast, slow for accuracy. So fast up close and personal, hoser paper, where I just see the front dot and I press the trigger as fast as I can as I'm running as fast as I can. That's exciting. But then also you have to switch gears and you have to slow yourself down and get that tiny plate, or you have to get the moving target. Same thing with the rifle. There's the fast Then there's the, hey, change gears, slow it down. Even long range, which for 3-gun long range is out to 600 yards. 600 yards is long range for us, which for PRS shooters is like nothing. But you know, it's mid range. And then shotgun skills. You know, you've got the flying clays, you've got falling steel, you've got slugs. Okay, so you have to know your guns, every single one of them, inside and out, how they perform with all the different types of ammo that you could possibly shoot. Buckshot, birdshot, slugs for shotgun. These are the same types of loads that you might choose for hunting, for self-defense. So I think 3-gun shooters probably have the largest knowledge base about the firearms and what they'll do and how to run them because of the sport that we play. I'm not saying we're the best. I'm saying that we have a lot of experience with it.
Okay. Just as a matter of to bring up the 800-pound gorilla in the room now. We've heard it, and that was a great explanation, by the way. If you guys were to look at, I'm talking to Mike and Corinne right now, and then the rest of you, I want to bring you into it. Does competition hurt you or help you? That is the ultimate question when as a concealed carrier. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll tell you what, let me just answer that real quick and I'll get my 2 cents worth in. I think anytime that you pick up a gun and you practice your basic firearms fundamentals, your safety, your sight alignment, your trigger press and all that, part of learning how to shoot and being a good shooter is, like Corinne said, knowing your equipment. You've got to understand how it works, when it doesn't work, what to do with it when it doesn't work. There's some of the competitions, I believe, and Corinne hit it right on the nose. I couldn't agree more where there is, you know, because just like GSSF, it's very much a blend between speed and accuracy. And in my opinion, accuracy is always better than speed. When I teach folks to shoot, you know, they see all these videos on YouTube and different places about, well, I watch Jerry Michalak or some of the very, very good shooters shoot amazingly fast and accurate, and they want to be able to do that right now. And, you know, there's no one that can do it like that. And, you know, so I teach them that you have to worry about finding your mark, you know, because I also teach up at the State Police Academy. We spend time on the range with those students doing nothing more than 1 and 2 shot drills, learning how to bring that gun up, find that front sight, squeeze the trigger, and be accurate with it. Anybody can be fast. It takes a lot of practice to be accurate and fast. So I think it depends on how you base your training, how you base the competition that you shoot. You can set those up to where you have to be accurate, and you have to do it as quickly as you can. If you can't be accurate, you got to slow down, get that accuracy, and then once that accuracy gets there, then you speed up and try to maintain that accuracy and do it at a faster rate.
I think if you stick to firearm platforms that are at least in the same world as the types that you would shoot for concealed carry or self-defense, meaning you're not going to the rocket space guns that, you know, have a scope on them and all of that. Now, are you still doing sight alignment, trigger press? Yes, great. But if you are staying close to your world in the type of firearms that you are shooting, then the only thing that competition doesn't give you or doesn't support are tactics, in my mind. There's movement as well. Now, tactical movement, no, there is not, but you learn how to shoot and move at the same time. That seems to me to be something that you might want to do in a self-defense encounter. You learn, like Mike was saying, accuracy, the importance of accuracy, and it's reinforced by when you are not accurate and you're docked down on points and you go, okay, well, I'll go back and I'll practice. So competition drives the need to practice. Whereas, which is funny because you would think, okay, the reality that I'm carrying this gun and I might have to defend myself should prompt me to go practice. But if there's no test at the end of the day that you have to practice for, a known test, then we don't practice as much. But if you know you're shooting that match this weekend, you're probably going to go out and practice. Why? Because you don't want to be embarrassed in front of other people. Because peer pressure, it can be a good thing sometimes.
That happens even when you practice sometimes.
Yeah.
one thing that I did want to circle back around, and I want to lead into two things, but the one thing I wanted to circle back around with you, Mike, we had talked off air about this, and I want to bring several others of you in on this thing too. Front side focus. Now, I've been through classes where that was I won't go there. But I want to talk about that. You off air, we talked about last night.
Yes.
That you had some conversations with some individuals who had been involved in justified deadly force encounters. And what was the one thing you told me that I really found it very shocking?
Well, and I'll tell you what we do as police firearms instructors, we teach the officers the very basic fundamentals. That's what they call it. It's basic training. And just like I said on an interview that I gave here a while back, if you practice at a basic training level, and you never go beyond that, you're always going to operate at a basic level. So on a basic firearms fundamentals, we teach focusing on the front sight, finding that, putting that dot or that front sight, lining it up with the back sight, putting it on target, squeezing the trigger nice and easy. That we do that over and over to develop muscle memory, because the next step, in my opinion, in survival or combat shooting, and when the officers get out of basic training and they go back to the departments need to then teach them into instinct shooting. Once they figure out this, focus on the front sight, squeeze the trigger, that's fine. You develop that muscle memory. But I have talked to several officers that have been involved in shootings where they've actually had to shoot and kill folks, that I specifically asked them, as trying to gather information to refer or to upgrade our training program. I said, did you see your front sight when this happened? And they all just kind of laughed at you and said, I didn't even see my gun. I just pointed at, I saw the threat, I pointed at the threat, and I just started firing. And that's where that instinct shooting comes in. You develop that muscle memory from your basic firearms training, finding that front sight, you know where it comes up in the same spot every time. On instinct shooting, you stop looking at that front sight and you start focusing on the target, and you drive that pistol or whatever weapon system you're using, you drive that to the target and squeeze the trigger. Most folks can do that very well, 7 and 10 yards. You start getting back 15 yards, and that starts diminishing some. And especially back to 25 yards. It's a chore for most folks to shoot a handgun at 25 yards accurately and consistently. But you have to transition when you're talking about getting away from the sport type shooting and into the actual, the pucker level has hit the ceiling, and the adrenaline's high, your body's doing things you're not used to. You transition from that target shooting to your instinct shooting or your point shooting, and that's where hopefully you've developed those skills well enough that you've got that muscle memory to put that gun out there and fire the shots and shoot until the threat's gone.
I can just see John itching to ask a question right now.
No, I was going to ask Mike on that, because I've heard this before as well. That people will say they don't see their front sight in that incident. And, do you think that that's an issue with a lack of training? Because I would assume there are other professionals, maybe yourself included, that would say you can get to a proficiency level. And I'm not saying I'm there, but it seems like you would be able to get to a proficiency level where you will reliably see your front sight because you have ingrained that, into your muscle memory. When you bring it up, your eyes are going to shift to that front sight. Or would you say that's not the case?
And I think that's going to vary with individuals. What I've really found is that basic instinct, that fight or flight instinct, and that's why when we do a lot of force on force with FX or simunition rounds, a lot of times I play the bad guy, and it's amazing how many rounds I get hit in the hand, simply because when that gun comes up, the adrenaline takes over so much, and your body does certain things that you're focused on that threat, and that's all you're looking at that point. You may see the front sights, you may not. But the folks that I've talked to, most of them said they didn't even. In fact, one of the officers I talked to at the time was carrying a 1911. He dumped 8 rounds and did a reload and didn't even realize he reloaded.
Yeah. Well,
so he had no clue. He was just because we're taught that when a threat presents itself that gives us the right to use deadly force, you shoot to that threat is gone. And
right.
that's what he was doing. And they, the ones I talked to said they didn't even see the front sight. And and I found that true a lot when we do the force on force training too. When you got simunition rounds coming at you, that changes things a little bit. The ones that are very, very good shooters and have practiced a lot of times they'll slow down and you can see them taking a sight picture and putting good accurate shots. But if they get surprised and it's a right now type thing, most of them just pull up and shoot.
Do you think it's similar to because I was wondering, is it that they're not seeing their front sight, or is it that they see the front sight, but because they're having this adrenaline dump, whatever's going on, that their brain is after the fact, it's not focusing on that tiny memory of seeing that sight, similar to like you can be driving down the highway and space out and still stay in your lane and drive 2 miles, and then you realize
right
you just went 2 miles. It's not that you didn't see the highway, it's that you saw it but your brain wasn't focusing on it. And in this case, is it possibly the same sort of deal?
It very well could be. It could be that they actually did see that front sight, but what they really remember is the suspect with the gun.
Yeah.
That's very possible.
I think there's something to that. I mean, just kind of add on to what Mike was saying. I've done sim training. Thankfully, I've never had to worry about a deadly force encounter. But whether it was on being the bad guy or the good guy in sim training, when all I remember from those times I'm surprised, especially with an active threat that's right there, is that threat. And I think it is because you burn into your memory those things that are very traumatic, or the thing that you remember the most that was the most important at the time. Now, when it was a further away engagement, 50 or 60 yards or whatever it was, sims don't go very far, but then you kind of realize, okay, I need to slow down and take a better shot.
Right. Yes.
There's a little bit of a difference there.
There is.
But, yeah, and I think Mike, when you pointed out the 1911 thing, I think that just shows that muscle memory worked.
Yes.
Everybody's like, everybody bags on the capacity of 1911, but when you throw a reload in that fast, you already built that training in there. So the training is there. He didn't remember reloading. That doesn't mean he didn't remember his front side. So I think he had a really good point there, that we're really focused on that target, and we maybe have seen the front side.
Yeah, that could be.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was that very good points. Because when I guess I should have reworded that they don't remember seeing it. Didn't mean they didn't see it, because they very well could have. It could have just been one of those instinct type things. But what they remembered more than anything was just that threat and that gun, and they just pointed and shot.
Hey, Clint, did you have any thoughts on that?
On your question, does competition hurt or help carry? Is that your question?
Front side focus is where we're at right now. Because I'm going to lead into a different issue here, guys. Just wait.
Okay. The front sight focus thing is, I think Mike is right on par, and I think John is right on par as well. Sometimes we'll do things, get all pumped up, get adrenaline running, and you don't remember anything, but you actually probably did do the right thing. I personally, I know that Mike, you teach front sight focus. I try to teach target focus because I want every bit of, I want to see every bit of my threat clearly. And I just teach to bring the gun up between you and the threat and get a sight picture and make the shot as accurately as you can. I don't, I guess the whole deal, and I've talked to several officers like you have, Mike, about whether they see the front sight or not, and it's the same thing. Almost every one of them say, I never saw the front sight. Again, is that a training issue? Maybe, or is it a blocking issue? Did their brain block it, like John's saying? Yeah, that's possible too. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, just basically kind of a repeat of what John and Mike had said.
Okay. Hey, Corinne, I wanted to ask you from predominantly a 3-gun standpoint on that very issue on front side focus. I mean, how do you? Well, I'm gonna parse it in this way. In 3-gun, for instance, and I'm gonna bring Mark in here in a second too on an issue. But on 3-gun, you're going from. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from. Hang on, let me lock myself on so we're not bouncing around. We're going from open sights to an RDS, a red dot, back to open sights, all in like boom, 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 boom sequence. How did your brain process all that type of thing, and how can that be put into the real world as well too? I mean, there's a lot going on there.
Well, because for me, open iron sights like on the pistol or even the rifle, and then the red dot can each be used 2 ways. My pistol sights can be used, or I'm ignoring what's painted or inserted on the sights, and I'm just focusing on the perfect, what you're supposed to do in, basic pistol, number 1 at the bullseye shooting. You're focusing on the front sight, on the top edge of the front sight on the center, and I'm ignoring what's painted on my sights. But then, that's for the slow, accurate shots. Maybe they're a little bit farther. Maybe it's a smaller target. But then I can use that open sight the second way, which is, I'm shooting faster at closer range, and I just need to get 2 well-placed hits in the center of the target. Well, then I can watch, which is essentially a dot, which is, orange dot, red dot, green dot, yellow dot, white dot of that front sight, the whole front sight, jump up and down on the center of the target where I want to watch it. So same sights used 2 different ways for 2 different applications: fast up close shooting, or smaller target, distance, more accuracy based. So same sight, 2 applications. The same as with a red dot. When I am laying down with a rifle and I need to hit at 500, 600 yards, 300 yards, it doesn't matter. I'm not focusing on the entire red dot. I prefer, for me, instead of an illuminated red dot, they're fine, and I am shooting one currently, I prefer etched glass because it's a crisp point. It's might as well be irons. Okay, I'm not focusing on the entire dot. I'm focusing on the center of the top edge of the dot as my front sight, and that is for the slow, harder shots. But then again, when I'm running around with the rifle closer, or even not as close, because we're talking about a rifle, it's much easier to be accurate even quickly at distance. I'm using the whole dot to aim with. I'm just putting the whole dot over the center and pressing the trigger. So, red dot or iron sights, there's 2 different ways to use them for 2 different types of shooting. Okay.
Now here's where I want to transition into something that's interesting. We've all talked about the front sight, and we've all been taught that, right, in basic pistol stuff. Mark, I know that you've been through fighting pistol just recently with James Yeager. What did you learn there?
Oh, tons of information. I mean, it's 2 days worth of information fed to you with a fire hose, and it takes an individual from the basic rudimentary, here's how you grip a gun, here's how you utilize both of your hands to create a solid platform for your recoil management. Here's basic sight alignment, and okay, now we're drawing and we're shooting. One of the things that I noticed the most is when we were shooting from retention or in a very, very up close, self-defense, where your gun is right here into your ribs and you're firing to get someone off of you. And as you transition, as you're stepping backwards, you're firing here, you're bringing your arm down and you're pulling up and finding that front sight to place rounds in the chest cavity around the heart. That was actually one of the areas that was a little bit more difficult for me, because not only are you moving backwards and you're moving to a more moving to a spot that's more gives you more advantage, gets you more distance from your assailant. You're also trying to track that front sight as well. So that front sight is bouncing at the same time. You have to really learn yourself. You have to learn how you move. You have to learn how your mechanics of your body affects your sight picture as well. So adding all of those pieces together and then trying to place accurate rounds on target can be somewhat difficult. So that's one of the points that I really took away from my 2 days there, and realized that, I need a lot more practice at it. I need to get to a range and work iteration after iteration after iteration of doing that. But two, also understanding that, again, okay, I got it. The target's right in front of me, but it's bringing that front sight up and focusing on that front sight to ensure that I'm aiming and placing shots on target. So that's one of the biggest takeaways that I found. There's a lot of other things. One of the things that I'd like to jump to real quick, and I'll briefly touch on this, is I see some stuff in the chat, and a lot of people talking about adrenaline and stress management.
We're going to talk about that here in a second, actually.
Okay, well then I won't touch on it. So I'll let you transition from there. So, but
I'm glad you saw that though.
Yeah. So, but basically, everyone's correct. One of the best things that we can do as instructors to other individuals is ensuring that for close, fast shots, front sight, focus is going to be your best bet. There are other things that you can do for point and shoot type of stuff, but for the most part, finding that front sight is going to do you best.
Gotcha. I want to. Here's where the transition is. We've said the front sight. How about this? How many of you on the panel? You can turn your mics on. How many of you on the panel carry with an RDS, a red dot sight, on your pistol?
I do.
So, how many are there? There's 1, 2.
Here.
Is there just 2 of you?
I've got a couple with red dots on it. I don't carry. I still use iron.
So 2 of you carry with irons.
Some of us can't afford.
Yeah, I was going to say some of us can't afford a RMR. Thank you guys for rubbing that in our face. Cheers.
By the way, I know a guy that can set you up with that. So.
Yeah, he's Williams Gunworks out of Wichita.
Shameless plug. Shameless.
What a plug.
Yeah, shameless plug.
But Corinne, you can you hear me, Corinne? Did we lose you? Corinne, are you there? You are. Do you carry with an RD with a red dot sight?
I don't, but I'm not saying that I wouldn't. I haven't transitioned. I haven't been pushed into that for any reason yet. So, somebody convinced me why I should do it. Somebody convinced me.
What would Instructor Zero say at this point in time?
I don't know, something in Italian.
I'll convince you of the reason why I think it makes sense. I think it's easier to make, if you have to make a shot at longer range, it's easier to do so. If you look down the aisle at Walmart, just as an example, I'm not saying we can't do this iron sights, but you look down the aisle at Walmart, I think the average Walmart aisle length is like 32 yards or something like that. That's a pretty long shot under stress. That's one reason. The other thing I like about it is after shooting a red dot pistol, it did make it a little easier for me. And it was just because I only have to focus on 2 things. 1, the target, and 2, the red dot. Put the dot on the target, and I know my fundamentals pretty well. If I can squeeze a good enough trigger squeeze, then I'm probably gonna be okay. With the sights, I have to find my target. I have to find my sights, line my sights up, and I have to make sure my sights are transposed over that target. Now, that can happen quickly, but I think a red dot is a faster, more efficient way to do that.
To a point, you're right. Yeah.
I think it has to do with a couple things, but number one, whatever you choose to practice with a lot, because even in competition with the open division shooters who do shoot a red dot on their pistols, I can't tell you how many times I've seen them pull out their gun from their holster and then take a beat to find the dot and then go. I mean, you still have to search for the dot. So whatever you choose, I think there's technology that helps us, but there's no technology that will make up for practice.
100% true. Yep, I agree with that.
2 points real quick I wanted to say is, number one, what is the average aisle length of Kroger or Dillon's? Because I don't shop at Walmart.
It's 17 yards. It's shorter.
I'm a little uppity like that. And two, Dusty in the comment section actually made a very, very valid point. I know that John kind of rebutted him, but the average engagement distance for something like 90% of the engagements is under 10 feet. Why spend the money on a red dot? And so I think it's a great question. You know,
okay, I can touch on that if you want me to, Mark.
Yeah, I was just going to. One last note is FBI statistics is 3 seconds at 3 yards at 3 shots. So just throw that out there, stir the pot.
Yeah. There's a, he's got a valid point. Why spend the money on a red dot? But John also has a very excellent point too. The red dot is going to be super accurate, a lot, even better at distance. But here's the great thing about a red dot. You have a learning curve right off the bat of like Corinne said, hunting the dot down right off the draw. You're going to have that learning curve. But once you get that learning curve taken care of and you learn how to index the gun correctly and you learn how to pick up that dot immediately, literally, with post sights, you have a front sight to line up, a rear sight to line up, and then you have to line up on the target. And then you have to have trigger squeeze. That's 4 things going on, okay? With a red dot, you have 2 things going on. Dot on target, squeeze the trigger. It's easier, technically, to transition. Even somebody new, like my wife, for instance, has been running my gun, my red dot gun. And so now because of that, I have to go buy another Trijicon. But she's found it easier to run the red dot and to be super accurate with it, way easier and way faster than her open sight setup is. I think for somebody that's brand new, and I think that the red dots are actually going to be more or less kind of the future. If you look, there's more and more guns coming out with red dots on them. It's just an easier transition to learn. It's super accurate, especially at distance. I mean, we stand out with my gun 100 yards away, and we can hit an IPSC target all day, every day with it, no problem. So,
go ahead. Can I transition to the oldest member of our group, and Mike, real quick?
Oh, thanks.
We hope wisdom comes with age. Over the 40 years, or 30 years, or 30 years of law enforcement and shooting and so on and so forth, and you've seen this evolution. What's your thought about the red dot now? I mean, is it now we're into the red dot stage? Okay.
Well, actually, we won't talk about 30 or 40. It's just years, okay?
Yeah.
But when I started law enforcement, we shot revolvers. Yes. We shot wheel guns, and we transitioned to the semi-automatics and all that. Quite honestly, now we've seen in law enforcement, we've seen, especially on tactical teams, a lot of patrol rifles are equipped with red dot, EOTechs or whatever they might be. But when I was running the team, if the guys carried red dots, if their rifles were equipped with red dots, they also had to have iron backups because Murphy's always going to take over at the right opportune moment. I can't tell you the number of times when I was actually still doing entries. I'd get out of the truck to go to the house, and I'd look down at my dot, and the batteries were dead. I couldn't get the damn thing to come on. I'm sorry. Yeah, and so you've got to have those iron backup to transition to. Okay. Again, I'm from old school. I think someone that practices with that iron sight, I think they can be just as fast and just as accurate. Because I'll be honest, I've got a couple of my competition guns that I use that have red dots on them, and they sit just a little differently than the sights do. I got the muscle memory down pretty well for my iron sight, and plus, as you start coming up with that gun, you can pick up the front sight peripherally. On that dot, I find that if I come up and if I don't find it right away, I'm moving that gun around trying to find that dot a lot of times, and instead of taking less than a second to fire my first shot, it's taken me over a second to find the dot and squeeze the round off. So I'm not saying I think the red dots are a wonderful tool. Don't get me wrong. I think it's all on what you become accustomed to and what you can shoot well.
I think for me, Clint had a very good, very persuasive argument for you have one less thing that you have to consider, one less clutter in your vision when you use the red dot, so you don't have to focus front sight, rear sight, put it together, and all that in the target, what's going on. So my last hang up is what Mike was talking about, and it's the, the failure rate. What is the failure rate and what happens when it fails? And it's the same reason why on my irons rifle, which is a red dot rifle, I do have backup irons that are co-witnessed because they go down. The stuff happens, equipment fails. And if you have no plan B when it comes to the red dot, and I'm assuming I'm going to ask those of you who carry the red dot on your pistol, are your iron sights sighted in with the red dot? Or if it went out, you just go back to your iron sights and everything's fine? Or educate me about that.
John, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was going to say yes. Yeah, the irons are sighted in, and yeah, that way, basically, if I bring up the gun, sorry, my hand's getting the camera. If I bring up the gun and the dot is not there, just a hair below that are my iron sights. So it's not a hard transition to go from one to the other. But you're right, and in that case, I would say if you're carrying a red dot on a handgun and you don't have backup iron sights, I would say that would be negligent on someone's part. But one of the things that I wanted to touch on that I think is one of the strengths of the red dot is going off of what we talked about earlier, which was our front sight focus, and should you have a soft front sight focus or a hard focus. The beauty of the red dot is that it allows us, and Aaron Cowan at Sage Dynamics has a great white paper that he wrote up about this, but it allows you to stay threat focused, and you don't ever have to bounce between the threat, your front sight, the threat, the front sight, as that threat potentially is changing and doing different things in front of you. You can just burn a hole with your eyes on your threat, and you just have a red dot that's going to be hovering in your vision, which I think is a huge benefit, as being a concealed carry holder. And you've got to be, like Vigilance was saying it there, you got to be responsible for every round that's coming out of that handgun. I am more aware of my surroundings when I'm shooting a red dot than I am when I'm shooting irons, because if I'm shooting irons, I'm staring at the target, and then right as I go to squeeze the trigger, I focus on the front sight, and the target is now blurry. And that target may have done something different. He may have put his hands down. It may no longer be a threat. And I think that's one of the big strengths of the red dot. There's definitely a learning curve, but get a red dot and then sit in your room and do just presentation after presentation until, like Clint said, every time you present the gun, it's flat. And if it's flat and you've slaved it to your iron sights, the dot's going to be there.
Yeah,
So,
real quick, Lyle. Yeah. So this is my red dot gun right here, okay? And if you look at it, you'll see that the sights are a little bit taller than your factory standard sights. And yes, I'm allowed to co-witness right through the glass. The way that I've got this set up is sights are sights. I mean, they're dialed in pretty much. The sights are pretty accurate, right? 10 to 15 yards, they're just fine. The dot, however, I have zeroed at 25 yards. And that just makes it so that I don't have such a terrible offset whenever I squeeze the trigger, whether I'm at distance or whether I'm up close. I don't have a crazy offset and have a lot of calculations to do. If the optic goes down, and it's very easy for me to transition, but some guys there's this common misconception that some guys will tell you, well, your sights and your dot should coincide with one another exactly. And that's not necessarily true. Like John alluded earlier, your dot sometimes will actually hover like an eighth to a quarter of an inch up above your sights, depending on where the zero is. So zero is everything on these. There's guys that will zero these at 10 yards, and then they get out to 25, 30, 40, 50 yards and trying to figure out why they miss.
Mark, I think you had asked a question about the FBI stat, the 333 rule that everybody likes to talk about. It's kind of like, in my opinion, the 21-foot rule. But, I think Mike can also speak to why they don't carry revolvers anymore. I mean, if it only was 3 rounds in 3 seconds at 3 yards, Why do we carry anything with a greater capacity than 3? I personally carry my gun in the very unlikely event that I'm actually going to need it. If it's unlikely that I'm going to need more than 3 rounds, it's probably just as unlikely that I'm actually ever going to need my gun. So I carry it for the possibility of ever having to use it. I carry 2 full magazines and a flashlight on it in case I need those also. So that's kind of my thought on kind of where that stuff kind of goes to.
Yeah,
Anybody?
I agree. I got a couple different points. To Derek's point, Masada U has an ongoing bet, if you will, not necessarily a bet, but basically a challenge that anyone who does a emergency reload in a violent encounter, he will pay them $10,000, and that's not a reload because of a malfunction, but hey, I went out and I got into an engagement. I fired all of my rounds and I had to reload. So far over the years, he's yet to pay that $10,000 out. So that was one of the things that was discussed. Not to say that we don't carry extra magazines, because one of the things that I also learned this weekend with training with tactical response is obviously if there's a malfunction, you tap rack. If there's a type 3 malfunction, it's a tap rack. If it doesn't fix it, then you automatically go into a reload. You know, that's a technique. It's not set in stone. Everybody teaches differently, but that was something that I really took away from that training as well. The other thing that I wanted to point out when it comes to, we've talked about red dots and we've talked about, co-witnessing with our iron sights. And of course, naturally, we always want iron sights. But one of the things that we also talked about in this last weekend's training was Hick's Law. And Hick's Law is that every time that you add a procedure, if you add something to what you're already doing, it automatically doubles the time it takes you to do something. So if you're bringing your pistol up to shoot and you're looking for a red dot, but it's not necessarily there, then you're adding necessarily, in theory, quote unquote, doubling the time that it takes you to find your sights. I don't know if that's true or not. I've never shot with a red dot on my pistol. Clint, I sure would like to make that happen, but that's just one of the takeaways. I can't speak in depth on whether or not that is true or not, but the more that I'd like to think that I'm minimalist in the fact that I'd like to have the least amount of stuff on my gun, but at the same time, as other people have said, and I'm kind of on the fence here, is the more tools we have to protect ourselves or to make us that much better in competition shooting, I kind of want to have it. And, hey, as Grand Thumb says, if you don't look cool, then why do it?
It's all about looking cool, and really. I mean, isn't that what it's really about? But to your point, though, my question is then, and I don't want to get off on semantics, but if we add a red dot and we remove a plane that we have to deal with, so target, front sight, rear sight, if we're removing that plane and we're giving a red dot and a target, and that's all we're looking about, then, I mean, wouldn't that almost lessen your time?
Bingo. That's
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. Yeah, you in theory it would, but we have to go back to Mike's point is, we have situations where batteries fail, or you bring it up and you didn't get necessarily the best purchase on your pistol, and when you bring it up, it's not exactly aligned like it should be, so you're searching for that dot. So that's kind of a concern.
Sure.
But you have to digress and realize that has to be a training regiment. That has to be something that you're doing, and you're keeping that skill fresh. And if you're not doing that, then you're doing yourself an injustice.
Mark, real quick, the whole dot hunt thing is actually something that, and don't get me wrong, I sometimes I do it still, but if you learn how to index the handgun with open sights, and you've got an RDS on your gun, the dot's going to show up. So if you're dot hunting, you didn't really have the gun indexed right to begin with. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Again, I'm not speaking from experience, so you have to forgive me on that.
It's actually something that John and I have actually kind of discovered, that just present the gun like you had open sights, and you'll find that and John can elaborate on this further. I'm sure he's much better at it than I am. That's why he's on YouTube and I'm not. But we found that you just index the gun like you're indexing open sights or standard sights, and the dot will go poop right up in your vision. The same thing with if you're drawing the gun, like Mike had said, where you can start locating that front sight as you're bringing the gun up. Remember, you can start locating that front sight as the gun has come up. Keep coming onto that front sight. As soon as that gun is indexed, the dot will show up and you'll have it.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, because going off of that, like Clint's saying, if you don't index the gun correctly with irons, that means there's no dot, which then also means that your irons are not where they should be, which means you're going to be throwing a shot where you shouldn't be throwing a shot. So if you come up and you bring the gun up and you don't see the dot and you just freeze and move your head to find the dot and it's in the top right corner, that means that your iron sights are misaligned as well. So Steve Fisher from Sentinel Concepts has said that he kind of took this and said, actually, if you start practicing with a red dot, it invariably makes you a better shooter with irons, because it amplifies the mistakes and the movement that you make with a handgun, because now it's only it's a fine, precise point. And so if you can reliably and consistently present a handgun and see the dot, that means that that means your iron sights are consistently coming up and being presented as they should, with equal height, equal light.
Hey, Corinne, in the competition world, and Mike, even if you'll add in for GSSF, what are you guys seeing on the 3-gun side as far as RDSs go?
You mean the kinds, or where they're putting them?
Are they putting them on their handguns now?
Yeah, I mean, people in open division, where you can literally do anything. You can attach anything you want, the kitchen sink to your gun. If you think it will help you shoot faster and load more ammo into your gun, you can attach it. They're putting red dots on their pistols. They're putting red dots on their shotguns. I wish I had that. That would be nice. That would be nice. And what we're seeing is, I believe in any division, I could be wrong because I haven't done this, so I haven't had a need to actually read the rules, but they're putting them offset on their rifle as well. So they're running their dot or their scope and then offset. And I haven't done this. I haven't myself seen the benefit, but people better than myself are doing it. So obviously there's a benefit to, for the faster targets, closer targets, turning the rifle on a cant and using that red dot. Maybe I haven't done it because I have a red dot always attached to the top of my gun. I very rarely will shoot with magnified optics, so it's all the same to me. But that's one of the applications that lots of people are doing. They've got a magnified optic on top of their rifle and a red dot offset on the side.
So the question is, Corinne, with the folks that are putting, and this is, I'll ask this one last question and then go to Mike, and then I want to move on to something else. But are the folks that are putting RDSs on their handguns, are they winning matches?
I don't think Bob Vogel has a red dot on his Glock, and he wins all the time. Taryn doesn't have a red dot on his Glock, and he wins all the time. Ashley York doesn't. Lena Michalik doesn't, that I know of. I think at that point, at that level, it's going to depend on the shooter, not the dot.
And you mentioned somebody in particular that I know Clint has great respect for, Taryn Butler, who you have a great relationship with. So, anybody else know who Taryn Butler is, by the way?
Yeah, he trained Keanu Reeves to shoot like in John Wick. If you guys have never seen his YouTube videos, he's not from Earth. He's not from Earth. No. I'm sorry. He stepped up. He stepped off of a spaceship. Him and Vogel both. They all stepped off of a spaceship. So did Rob Latham. Yeah. They're not human.
Having shot with Taryn, I can definitely agree with that. If you can ever squad with Taryn, and that's one of the really cool things about shooting 3-gun and shooting competition in general, is that most of the time, yeah, they make these super squads, and sometimes it's hard to get into them. All the top people, maybe all the team members of a certain company are going to shoot on a squad, but most of the time, you can choose who you squad with. So I've squatted with Jerry. I've squatted with Kay, Lena all the time. I mean, Taryn all the time. You as a beginner, intermediate, or advanced student can spend 2-3 days watching game stages as your idol, as you're shooting idle. You're learning. You can learn so much. Always, okay, tip, always shoot with people who are better than you. Always.
Yep.
Always. Because you will even subconsciously start to adopt some of their techniques. I think the only bad thing about shooting with Taryn, and this can be pretty bad, is you start to get used to the cadence of his fire. You know, that he pulls and then you get up there and you start trying to do the beat. Anyway, so you can end up shooting faster than you should, but always squad with people who are better than you, always.
Mike, any more on our red dots and competition, especially in GSSF?
Well, and I'll tell you what I've seen on the GSSF. They have an open division or unlimited division. There's a shooter in GSSF named Brian Dover. In each match that GSSF puts on, there's 8 different categories you can enter. And the GSSF gives what they call the Matchmeister Award for the person that shoots the fastest time. There's 3 events. One's the plate rack, one's called Glock AM, the other one's 5 to Glock. You shoot the same exact course in each division. Brian shoots a stock, not a stock. It's pretty much stock. You get different sights, a little bit of a trigger job. Other than that, that's all he does to it. He shoots that in his as his stock gun in the Master of Stock division. He also shoots an unlimited gun in the open or unlimited division. And most of the time, his stock gun, he shoots faster and better than he does his open gun.
Really?
Yes. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, I've done the exact same thing. I've been to matches where we shoot the subcompact division. Again, it's the same 3 courses of fire, but I shoot a Glock 26, and I've shot better with my 26 than I did my 17 or my 34. So,
wow.
It's just, it all depends on the day.
Yeah. I want to transition into this, guys, and bring this up to specifically our instructors, and then we'll kind of branch out from here. Stress. I know it's been in the chat. We've been watching it, and Marky brought it up earlier. Couple of different things. Number one, I'll bring it up this way. Number one, timers, are they a good thing or a bad thing? And then secondly, I want us to transition into what is the best artificial way to induce stress that you guys have found on the instruction side. And then those of you who are not instructors maybe can ask some questions on that. Anybody want to start on that? Are timers good or bad?
I think it depends on the I think it depends on what you're doing, really, to be honest with you. Timers can be a good thing to get a baseline. I don't think they're totally necessary, but I mean, they do add some stress. But I mean, I've got a shot timer, and that's just because I want to know where I'm at every time I go to the range. I just want to know where I personally am at, because it gives me a goal for myself to beat. So if I want to get faster on the draw, like back in the day when I shot a lot of IDPA, my fastest time from concealment to first shot on target was 0.68. That was pretty much as fast as I could go. Now I am much, much slower. I hate to say it, but I'm much slower. So it just gives me a goal to get back to.
You're getting old, man.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
Mike, what do you think about timers, man?
You know, I trained for a lot of years, and I taught for a lot of years without a timer. Timers are a good tool, and that's what they are. I mean, they're like anything else. It's a good reference to use if you need to know where you're at, or you're trying to improve or get better. And I'll tell you, one of the drills I do with our officers, in addition to our qualification, is I would set up a standard silhouette size steel plate at 10 yards. And the officers would have to stand in what we call our interview stance, like they were talking to someone or whatever. Gun in the holster.
Which looks like that.
Yeah, it was well, it had a coffee cup in one hand and a donut in the other is what it is. But so from the interview stance, timer goes off. They have they have 1.5 seconds to draw and fire 2 rounds and hit the steel target at 10 yards. And that was just a good drill that I put them through. And quite honestly, with a little bit of practice, just about every officer that came out and did that was able to make that time and improve on it. So they're a good tool to use. I don't think they're an absolute necessity, but if you got them, yeah, they're great to use.
Corinne, timers?
I think that in competition and in self-defense training, you're working with a time deficit or a time limit, or you're trying to make up time. So a timer, I think, I mean, we have to have timers in competition, but in self-defense or in our personal training, I think, like Mike says, it's a good tool and we should use it, but I've seen it used too soon and too often. And I think with that, it could be a bad thing. It's like over salting your food. Yeah, just a little bit here and there. Be careful about it and wise about it. But I think if you're wise about it, the timer can push you, can give you a little stress. My favorite coach, Rick Staples, he called the timer the stupid box. He didn't call it a timer. He said, grab the stupid box, because when you know that you're out of time, it does give you some artificial response, a stress response, or response to artificial stress. And you get to see how you respond. And so having a timer can give you a goal or set a limit, give you a mile marker or a standard that you have to meet, puts a little bit of pressure on you. So yes, use a timer in your personal training, but don't oversalt it.
I can see, Mark, you're itching to add something to this.
Yeah, so I have to totally agree with Corinne here with the oversalting analogy. I feel that if you use a timer too soon, if you haven't developed your foundations through training, going through training with whomever that may be, whether that's a defensive pistol training course, or if you have the big bucks like Keanu Reeves and can go out to Terran Tactical and train with him, then if you're using a timer without some type of foundation, without some type of basis to go off of, a timer can actually exacerbate some bad habits. And that's kind of one of the points that I'm very, very cautious about competition shooting, is that I don't want to increase my bad habits going out and shooting and doing things repetitively. So here recently, training with Thunderbird Firearms Academy and training with Tactical Response, I've had to basically start over again and realize that these are my foundations. These are the things that I need to concentrate on. And I haven't, to be frankly honest with you, I haven't shot a competition since last October, and I wanted to do that. I forced myself to do that, even though I've been itching to go. Forced myself to do that to reevaluate all of that, get those foundations again, and then get back into competition with better. I hate to say the word over again, but better foundations to increase that.
All right, now I wanted to ask the other question, and then we'll do one more thing and wrap up actually for the union. But what's that best artificial way to induce stress? And I'll start with Mike. You've done it probably the most. What's the best thing that you have seen that can artificially induce stress?
Well, what we have done in the past is anytime you induce physical exertion, where we had our officers either run a distance, do push-ups, to physically wear themselves out. That's short of actual force-on-force training, where they're feeling the stress of rounds being, even though they're Sims rounds, there's still rounds being fired at them. That's about as close as to real as you can get. But other than that, the best way was physical exertion.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think any way that you can spike your heart rate, so physical exertion, fear. So that's something that competition will give you. It's not only exercise, because you're running around and getting up, and by the end of a stage, if you're not huffing and puffing, you didn't show up for the day. So You have physical exertion. You have bad weather conditions. If it's freezing or if it's super hot, that can induce some stress and cause some physical reactions. So fear, like I said, and then getting your heart rate. So, you know, even something as simple as the timer, something as simple as people are watching you do something. We can't get to the same degree that we would be in if someone was actually trying to hurt us, actually trying to kill us, but we can do our best to replicate it and then practice under those conditions. So you need to get to the point, and I love the word fundamentals. It's my favorite F word. So
you have to get your
fundamentals. Yeah, I did. So Mark, I like that point you were making. You have to get your fundamentals to a point where then you can start adding difficulty on top of it, and what you have learned doesn't shake. It stays the same so that you can continue to build on top of it. So, you know, a wise man built his house upon a rock, not upon the sand. So I think when we go to these advanced courses and we come back and we're like, man, I thought I was going to go and get all this super cool ninja cool rolling, tucking, you know, super ninja squirrel stuff. But all I did was I perfected this. That's perfect. That's good. That's what we want. Because then when we're shaking and we're bleeding and we're hurt and, you know, we're freezing or our heart is beating out of our chest, what we know is going to happen and we can concentrate on the other things.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that and add on to what Corinne was saying. The two best trainings I've ever had were in a really awful rainstorm for 2 days. That was pretty awful. That and force on force, like Mike was talking about. I mean, you want to induce some stress and see where your limits are. Those, short of having an actual deadly encounter, I think are probably going to be your best tools. And there is no rush that you're going to get like force on force training when somebody comes out to attack you.
Yeah.
Have someone punch you in the face right before you.
That'll work too.
That'll dump a whole bunch of adrenaline into you. And one of the points that a lot of people don't really understand is that if you're able to simulate, or if you're able to allow those glands to dump some adrenaline into your body, adrenaline is one hell of a drug. Let me tell you, it's 60% more effective than morphine when it comes to reducing the effects of pain. And so in real world situations where people have been shot, their adrenaline is going so much that sometimes they don't even realize that. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize too is that your fitness level will also allow you to either help you control or not control your the effects of adrenaline. And that was always one of the points that I wanted to focus on my channel, with the fitness element of Guns and Gear and the fitness to run both is my tagline. I don't know if I've really conveyed that or gotten to that point yet. And I think hopefully in the future, the new direction I'm taking my channel hopefully will help hammer that point home. But take a look at, you know, yourself, or, you know, if you've ever been in a fight, if you've ever been in a fist fight, or you've ever been in an accident, or you've seen something very traumatic, what happens? Your hands are sitting there shaking, right? For a lot of people who are not fit, who are not in shape, not to say that people can't control it and not be in shape, but the more in shape you are, the better you can control that, the better you're able to, calm yourself down and, allow that adrenaline chemical to get through your body. And that was another takeaway from this weekend that I had, was how much adrenaline actually affects you. And it actually goes back to what Mike was saying earlier in this chat about how people don't even remember the fact that they've reloaded. The reason why they don't remember that they've reloaded is because that adrenaline automatically starts causing the heart to pump faster. Your brain also starts to extract a lot of blood into your vital organs, and to your brain, to your chest, your lungs, your heart, and it actually reduces your ocular vision as well. So you get that tunnel vision, and it also affects your memory. So in a lot of cases, it's best to if you ever get into a personal defense situation, to be able to take a second once it's over to take a step back and allow yourself to calm down, because then your memories start coming back to you. So those are some of the takeaways that I have about adrenaline. And there you go.
I'll say this before I throw it to Mike on that issue, is if you watch Mark FitnFire on IG or Insta, especially on IG, man, dude, you wear people out, man. Seriously, if you watch Mark on IG, and I encourage you to go subscribe to him, FitnFire on Instagram, or even I think you put some of them on Facebook too, don't you?
Yeah, I tag them both on whatever I post on Instagram. It automatically goes to Facebook as well. But I've just started a new gym this week, and it's high intensity interval training still, but it also has a boxing element, and it just adds that much more intensity to it, because you're actually exerting yourself and throwing punches. And it's where I was able to get through most of my workouts pretty easily. Now, I shouldn't say easily, but I could get through the workouts before. Now halfway through it, I'm just smoke dog tired. So I'm really excited about this new gym.
Mike, do you mind if I throw to Corinne right now?
No, go ahead.
She is doing some serious Krav Maga even in training, because you train hard, don't you? I mean, honestly, you train like seriously, like, physically hard.
Oh yeah, totally. No, I try.
on.
I tried to do the fit training, but I try to mix it up. So I'm in the gym a couple times a week, but I try to prepare myself for what I would have to do in a competition, which is a lot of strength, a lot of endurance, cardio, building muscle mass, and then the Krav Maga I've been doing for several years, off and on, because years ago, I was going to take an integrated Krav Maga and firearms course. And I went to one introductory Krav Maga class, and I realized the movements and the shapes and what we did was exactly related to everything I did with a gun. Draw stroke, the pressure, the movement, the stance, everything like that. So, the days of standing still on the range deck and just taking my time with the bullseye, those should be few and far between. I've tried to add something to what I'm doing all the time, because that heart rate, performing under stress should be a familiar and comfortable place to be. After you have a solid foundation of your skills, you should live in the stress zone, so that eventually that's an easy place to be. That's comfortable for you. And that is when you're going to be able to rise above the situation and perform to your best, or close to your best in the worst case scenario.
Mike, just wanted to address that stress thing. Would you agree with what you've heard here from a professional standpoint that you've seen and everything?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when he was talking about how the blood gets drawn from, you lose a lot of fine motor skills. And what he was talking about, the vision is one of them. You lose your peripheral vision a lot of times. Your body will do things that you're not used to. And strange things happen. And, it doesn't have to just be in a shooting. Any stressful, you get scared, or, a near accident, things like that. Your body does strange things to help you overcome and protect you from that. And I agree with everything that people have said. So absolutely.
So to kind of wrap it up and bring it to a head, then, does competition help our concealed carry?
I think so.
Okay.
I think it does to a point.
Anybody else?
I think you have to have your mind in the right place before you decide on what you're doing. If you're going to do competition, but you're using it as a tool for concealed carry, then you need to go into it with that mindset so that you learn those fundamentals correctly. If you want to compete. But if you want to learn it from a defensive standpoint, then keep those fundamentals with you when you step in.
So the F word just keeps popping up. I mean, it's like,
look, and Mike, I Mike, I think, can reiterate this, but out of all the research I've done, I've never been prior military or law enforcement, but I've done a ton of research. And from everything that I have seen, if you have the right fundamentals and you have the right mindset, you will win the gunfight every time. I mean, to me, it comes right down to that. It's not that's why I have a dedicated class called Fundamentals. It's dedicated to get your fundamentals set up correctly, but get your mind in the right place. Because I think actually the mindset is just as important as the fundamentals are.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Clint on that one. And that's actually taking a page straight out of Tactical Response. They have their 4 pillars with it, which is mindset is number 1, tactics, skill, and gear is their 4 fundamentals. And not to be a shill for Tactical Response, but I really bought into that, and I drank that Kool-Aid and went back for more. So I think, and of course I have to agree with everybody here on this, is if you're going to competition to shoot and use that as training, then I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't already gotten yourself training before. Now, competition can induce stress because you're under time and you want to be accurate. So if it is a supplement to the training that you've already got and you're working on those F-word fundamentals, then by all means have at it and do the best you can, or wish you luck. And I hope everybody will have a great time doing it. And that's the kind of the approach that I'm now taking to ensure that I'm, staying on top of my game as much as possible to have a good time, be competitive, but at the same time, supplement some of the training I've already got to defend my loved ones.
Anybody else want to drop the F-bomb?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to add into that, if we want to drop another F-bomb, everybody gets worried about the advancement or being an advanced shooter, or in Corinne's case, she's a professional shooter. Mike is a professional shooter. I mean, Clint, he professionally teaches people. They just know the fundamentals faster, and that's really, I think, what a lot of that comes down to, is they know how to apply them, and they know how to apply them in a faster manner because they've done the training, they've done the groundwork, and they've done a lot of that. But to kind of reiterate back to the actual point, I do think competition can help carry. I think that we've ran that thing over 1 million times, but mindset to me, as Mark said, is 100% of what will help you in a lot of situations.
Yep.
Corinne?
Can it help? Yes. Big yes. If you use competition, if you customize how you're shooting competition or experiencing it, or your involvement in it, to your goals in self-defense. So your firearms, even your placement, you may sacrifice being faster because your goal is to not have anything outside of the best scoring section. I have never regretted being accurate. I have regretted going too fast on a stage and dropping points. Competition also gives you experience. It gives you, but it also gives, when you guys are talking about physiological responses to stress, you don't remember something, you reloaded, you didn't realize you were hurt until after you were done shooting. If something's going to go wrong, it will go wrong. All of the different environments, the different weather, all of this you experience in competition, at least in what I shoot with 3-gun, because there's so much involved. So I can go, yeah, I know that's a true principle because that's happened to me before. I was so cold, my eyes could move, but my body couldn't move. I tried to rack the slide, but I didn't have any feeling in my fingers. So you can gain yourself in this simulated stress. And so it absolutely can drive your skill development, but you have to be honest about why you're there. And you can't sacrifice, to play the game, because competition at the end of the day is a game, and it's not the same as concealed carry. It is not. But to say that it doesn't help at all, I think is disingenuous, because it absolutely can help you.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Hey, Lyle.
Go ahead, John. I was going to ask you a question, but go ahead.
Well, Mike, off of that, I guess going full circle back around, both Mike and Corinne, I've never done any competition stuff, but I guess if someone was wanting to get into competition, would there be a particular avenue that you would suggest? If, you know, like for me, someone in the comments earlier had asked, does anyone else carry multiple rigs, you know, multiple different rigs for their concealed carry? I try not to, because I want to have the same weapon system and basically just increase my odds that I'm not going to have a brain fart when I'm using, you know, I go from a striker fire to a DASA gun. If you were a concealed carry holder primarily, that's what you focus on, but you want to take the advantages and things you can learn from competition. Is there a particular avenue that you would direct someone into, a noob into? IDPA, USPSA? I know for me it would be weird because I carry a red dot, so IDPA may not be an option, right? Because they don't allow this, or
No, they do.
They do.
Yeah,
So
they have a not for competition class that you can actually get into with the red dot.
Okay. So I guess what would you guys say there? Would there be any particular avenue you would say maybe go check out, get your feet wet?
I'll jump in because the way that I did it seemed to work for me. So I can't say if it'll work for everybody, but because of the mindset that I was coming from, this is for concealed carry, this is for self-defense. I did go into IDPA first, and I liked that because it's a more strict accuracy, concealed carry based genre. You do have to be concealed for one, so there's no faking it there. There's no just getting some loose holster, putting it on the outside, offset, drop holster that's going to make it easy. It's not designed to make it easy. It's designed to prove your gear and to prove your skills. So for me, IDPA was a good place to start. You slow down. It's racy, but I think it might, and I could be wrong, I think it's the least racy, as in fast, competition that there is for me. And then, of course, you know, you watch Bob and Ashley run it, and you're like, oh, yeah, no, it is fast. But it reinforces accuracy first. And then, you know, get into USPSA pistol, you know, if you're interested, multi-gun. But it's not hard to find places for most people in most areas to find somewhere to shoot. There's going to be indoor USPSA or IDPA places. So if you have a local range, that's the first place to start. Ask around, hey, what are the shooting leagues around here? Do you have a Thursday night shooting league? And then when you show up, people will direct you to the next place to go. There are no people like people who shoot. They are the best people in the world. They are the most helpful. If you show up and your gun doesn't work, your ammo doesn't work, you have no mags, they'll give you what you need. At least that's been my experience. And then there are some online forums if you're just searching for places to shoot. There's practicescore.com. There's Brioninos, which basically is the forum where everybody puts their matches in one place. But just start on the ground. Start where you're at and go to what's closest to you, and then grow from there.
Cool. Thanks.
One of the things that I would have to jump in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for IDPA and USPSA, you cannot draw from appendix carry. Is that correct?
I've never seen anybody in USPSA draw from appendix, and I haven't been to IDPA in a while. I don't know if that's something they've added or if it's still a no.
Last time I knew, IDPA would not allow you to do it because of the safety aspect. So if that's something that, you know, John, if you're carrying appendix like I do every single day, that's one of the downsides that you just have to adjust for.
One thing that I actually found out from shooting some of the local matches I used to, and I carry appendix some of the times too, get to know the people that are putting on the match, because once you get to know them really well, they'll allow certain things, especially if you're doing the not for competition stuff. I ran several courses of fire running from appendix. Now, I wasn't actually in the running, but they'll allow it if you're just wanting to do fundamentals. But you have to demonstrate that you can do it safely.
Yeah. Well, and I can chime in there from my range and me putting on matches and holding matches. From a safety aspect, is that there's certain shooters that I will allow to do certain things that other shooters can't. for that very reason. They've demonstrated to me that they know what they're doing. They're safe about it. Their skill level is to the point where, they can do that. Where if I get a brand new person out of the range, first time shooting like a steel challenge or something like that, they're going to follow the rules, the very basic beginning level rules, and other folks that have proven themselves they'll have more freedom.
Very good.
Thank you, guys.
I think we've done a good job tonight, and I noticed Michelle, 2 Alphas in the house. FitnFire, Mark, you know her.
Yeah, so real quick, shameless plug. Michelle and I will be doing a live chat 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on Friday.
There you go. That's good. That's good. That's what I want to wrap up on. I think we've got the issue down and kind of tackled in various different issues. We will be doing a modcast, or this live fire modcast monthly. I know that we backed these up like week to week here, the last 2, but we're going to stretch it out a little bit. And we'll be back in May for the modcast. We'll have some interviews here, but each one of you, I want you to plug yourself, okay? I can't do it via YouTube. You guys know that now. We can't. A lot of things we can't plug. Just like Williams Gunworks, I can't give a link down underneath for Williams Gunworks. So it's the way it goes. But plug yourselves. Tell us, give social info, how we can reach you, how people can reach out to you and get to know you. Just all those type of things, or how Trigger Guard, where Mike, where you at, and all that type of thing. Let's start with Clint first, though.
Okay. www.williamsgunworks.com, Facebook /Williams Gunworks, and then you can find us on Instagram in the same name, Williams Gunworks. That's about it.
Okay. Mike?
Again, like I said, it's Trigger Guard. The website is triggerguardonline.com, and I do have a Facebook page, Trigger Guard. We hold, I hold a monthly steel challenge. I do a monthly Glock practice match, set it up and run it just like our big match in July. Just started we're going to start on the 29th, I believe, a run and gun match. It's going to be similar to what a USPSA match would be like, except more just for fun, not so many of the rules. Safety rules will be in place, but not all of the restrictive rules. We just about every weekend we do some sort of a competition shoot. So I always post it on Facebook and my website.
Awesome. So Trigger Guard Online.
Triggerguardonline.com. Yes.
Okay, good deal. John, where can we find you, man?
CrusaderArmsChannel.com. You can find me on YouTube still. I'm still alive there. Crusader Arms Channel. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. So, yep, all those places.
And you also write a blog for your stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's on the website. And I'm kind of transitioning in preparation for YouTube canning me, just in case they do. I've got stuff I'm uploading to Daily Motion. I've supposedly got a slot secured with Full 30. We'll see what happens there, but it's kind of flexible right now, and waiting to see what happens.
And Ted, can you tell us or give us any little hints about things you're working on right now? I know about what you're working on, but John, can you tell us?
Who is this? I'm sorry. Say that.
Yeah, I'm talking. I said, yeah. Is there? Can you give us any clues about what you're working on right now for your channel?
I've got a couple gun reviews coming up. I got some much needed improved sights for my Smith & Wesson Shield, which is really my wife's gun, but I steal it from her sometimes. And then right now, kind of what I've transitioned to, which I'm enjoying a lot, is I'm doing ballistic testing, comparing different rounds. So that's been really interesting for me because you'll learn some very interesting things about your ammo choices. and how they stack up, especially when it comes to barrel lengths. So that's been really fun. So
Okay.
I'm just going to keep doing that series. It's going to go into rifle as well. So.
Hey, Mark, man, tell us about FitnFire. Where are you going? What you're doing, man?
All right, so FitnFire, you can find me on the YouTubes, the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams. Instagram is a little bit different. It's going to be FitnFire78. But by all means, come by, swing by, see if there's anything you like. If there's anything that you don't like, let me know. Be interested in hearing what people have to say, what they're interested in, what they'd like to see. Currently, I'm starting to get into precision shooting. I just picked up a Ruger precision rifle in 6.5 Creedmoor. I also have a Athlon optic in my possession, not necessarily in my hands at this moment, but I just need to find some mount, find a decent mount for that, and I'll get that up and running and start my precision series on my channel. I also have started working with silencer shops, so I'm hoping to have a new 300 blackout CMMG AR-15 with their silencer on it. So we'll see how that goes here pretty soon. P365 is inbound from Brownells here shortly, so can't wait to get my hands on one of those. That may be one of my new EDCs, or at least a backup gun. And then, as aforementioned, I will be doing a live chat with Michelle 2 Alpha, who's been in our chat. So I'm really interested in that, and just kind of listening to her story and her journey for a woman's perspective on USPSA competition.
Great. I want to get a shameless plug. Athlon Optics. And Matt did send this to me, so I switch hats, you know. Shameless plug for FSM. These are Kansas companies, y'all. And so if there's any other Kansas companies out there want to send me a hat, I'll wear it during a video. It's okay. So, Cox, you want to give us any info there, brother?
Yeah, sure. So you guys can find me on Instagram. It's at dcox, COX 0313. You'll see me posting probably a lot more now, just because competition season's about to start. Getting back into some of the PRS matches that are here, PRS style matches that are here in Kansas. With that being said, go check out Kansas Precision Rifle Club. I'm not affiliated, but it's a great organization in the state of Kansas. We have a very strong precision rifle community, and it's just as friendly and open as the other stuff that Corinne was talking about earlier. So you guys want to go in there and follow me, that's great. Sometimes I'll post some snarky things about some of the gun legislation and all that good stuff. So that's me.
All right, man. And Corinne, tell us where can people find stuff, social, and what you're going to be doing here pretty soon.
Well, you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. YouTube and Facebook are Corinne Mosher, and Instagram is CorinneMosher.ShieldMaiden. I try to post videos of shooting, training tips. I recently was able to do some really cool stuff with Sean Ryan with Vigilance Elite, putting that stuff up for the next couple weeks. And I will this year be doing still competition. I focus on 3-gun because it's the trifecta of fun. It's all of it all at once. And that is going to take me all over the country. Training is going to take me all over the world. I hope to be able to find time to train myself this year because I am addicted to learning. I love to take training courses. So this July, I'll be taking a Dave Spalding course. I've taken courses at Thunder Ranch. I took Masad Ayub's Mag 40 last year. I'm sad that I don't have more time to go take training because I love it even more than competition. I love it even more than teaching. So I hope to be able to mix that in this year. I also write occasionally. We'll have some things published in America's First Freedom and other publications. I've decided to start doing videos of me reading my articles and put them online because I've noticed a lot of people don't click on links to read, but if someone's talking at them, they'll listen for a minute or so. So in any case, that's where you can find me. Instagram, CorinneMosher.ShieldMaiden, Facebook, Corinne Mosher, and YouTube, Corinne Mosher. Or on the range. You can find me on the range.
Can you hook us up with Taryn Butler?
Can I hook you up with Taryn Butler? Tell you what, I'm doing a charity 3-gun match in DeSoto, Kansas on May 26th. Taryn Butler has come every year the last 3 years, and he's going to be there again. So it's for the benefits of Kansas.
Boy, I'll be there for that.
What was that date, by the way?
May 26th, and it's
Okay.
special. It's the Shoot for the Gold charity 3-gun match for Special Olympics Kansas.
Right on.
All right.
Clint just try to touch the back of his shirt, and his magic fairy dust will rub off.
No, the magic is in the hair. The magic is in the hair.
The magic's in there.
Okay.
Well, y'all, thank you so much for you guys, every one of you, for being a part tonight. And I know it's, we go about an hour and a half to an hour and 40 minutes. Maybe live fire can be a little shorter as we get to learn things, but there's just so much information and stuff to talk about. And I know folks like to chit chat. And later on, after this is up, people will watch it too, and they grab little nuggets from here and there. And so, and we want to grow as a community. By the way, if folks are just tuning in and finding Kansas Gun Community, you can find us on Instagram at KSGuncom, on Twitter at KSGuncom, and then on Facebook at Kansas Gun. Well, you can go on there at KSGuncom there too and find us. But you can also, we have a Facebook group, which is a closed group, and you can look it up and you can join that group. And that's where a lot of more important things are dropped at, is in that group, because it's a vetted group of individuals. And so we try to keep kind of control of those things there. So, but I think every one of you guys, I mean, Clint, Mike, John, Mark, Derek, and Corinne, most of all, I mean, y'all, thank you so much. I'm humbled to have you on here. And you guys are good friends. I cherish the friendships I have with all of you. So tonight, I think that's it for me and the rest of us. Kansas Gun Community talking to you. Thank you for joining us. And please join back with us for the Live Fire Modcast next month. That's May, by the way. And we'll be talking about some very interesting things. I think you'll get it. I've already got it in my head. Again, there will be a tantalizing conversation. So, and we'll maybe drop an F-bomb or two. No, just joking. Just joking. Just joking. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for joining us.